La for, hit for none. All the time, la for, hit for none. For Islam stand for peace. La for, hit for none. For Islam stand for peace.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. We welcome you all, our cherished viewers, to yet another episode on Real Talk Africa. In this program, we discuss issues that affect man's general well-being, and these issues are wide-ranging, affecting man's social, moral, spiritual, and physical well-being. Today, inshallah, we'll be discussing a very, very, very important issue here in the studio, and this is a subject that holds the key for man's existence on earth, and this is the all-important topic about marriage. Inshallah, today we shall be discussing how to contract a proper marriage, what marriage at all is, and also the challenges people do face when contracting marriages and keeping or maintaining a peaceful marriage, especially with the case of the youth. Now we have here with us panelists, or our revered guests with us here, who are going to help us solve all these problems or these questions that we are having concerning marriage. And inshallah, we hope and pray, and it is our desire that they clear all doubts that we are having when it comes to marriage. So we have here with us Muallim Habibullah Ishaqu Sahib, missionary who is serving in Ghana currently. Muallim Sahib, you're welcome.
Thank you.
We also have Mr. Bilal Sahib. Mr. Bilal Sahib, you're also welcome.
Thank you, sir.
And also Mr. Osman Beidu Sahib. Yes, please. As you noted, we've mentioned names without titles. We shall be delving small, just brief, something brief about them, so that they tell us also what they are occupying in, or their occupation, and what they, their day-to-day activities are, and also to know more about our revered panelists here. This is Real Talk Africa, and as usual, we have in the studios our lively and then lovely audience here to help the program become very, very, very interesting, as well as sharing their ideas and their comments and their questions would be welcome and answered by our panelists. Our honorable studio audience, you are also welcome. You there at home, you join us today. Today we are discussing a very important topic, so don't stay away from your TV set. This is Real Talk Africa, and we are discussing marriage. We shall go straight and kickstart with Mr. Osman Beidu Sahib, just briefly telling us if in case I left some of his names out, and then the titles he is supposed to give us. We want to know something small about Mr. Osman Beidu Sahib.
Yes, thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. My name is Osman Yao Beidu. Just 3 names. And I am a teacher. Currently, I'm serving the Potting TI Ahmadiyya SHS as the Assistant Headmaster Academic. Yes, so this is briefly.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Jazakumullah sana jazak for that. And Mr. Bilal Sahib.
I am Amwedu Bilal. I'm the headmaster TI Ahmadiyya International School here at Bustan.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. And Muallim Ishaq Sahib.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I'm Ishaq Muhammad Habibullah, and I'm serving as translator for MT Africa.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Jazakumullah. So these will be our panelists today to help solve everything on marriage. We shall roll it off with Mr. Osman Beidu Sahib. Sorry. Mr. Osman Beidu Sahib, we want to know, what is marriage at all? What is marriage?
Assalamu alaikum. Marriage is an institution which is established by the Almighty to ensure the continuous existence of the human race. by definition, we can say simply that it's a union between a man and a woman who have come to agreement to stay together and ensure that all the limits that is applied to marriage, they will all abide by. Okay. Motive of marriage basically is about procreation. All right. So when a man and a woman who have attained an age, desire to stay together, you know, to procreate, then that entity becomes married. But of course, when we talk about in the context of Islam, then we are looking at marriage as an institution that is guided by the principles that are enshrined in the words of Allah, i.e. the Holy Quran. And so we all can remember that the Holy Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam made it categorical that marriage is half of the faith that we are professing. So you see that marriage is a very important entity that every individual has to go through before his demise. And indeed, the Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam has even gone to the extent of saying that if you are not married, then you are not of me, because there is no celibacy in Islam. So in short, marriage is a union between a man and a woman, but it has some principles, and so these two should be ready to play along those principles in order to be successful in life.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. So that's rightly mentioned by Mr. Usman Bedu Sahib, that there is no celibacy in Islam. Therefore, if you don't marry, the Holy Prophet Islam says that you are not part of his community. Now, we come to Mr. Bilal Sahib. Now, we get to know that marriage is something the Holy Prophet Islam has mentioned that we should all try and get married. Now, we want to know, is it a compulsory factor that we should all, by all means, marry? And if so, what should be the age limit when it comes to marriage?
Marriage, as you rightly defined by Osman, is a union between a woman and a man who have agreed to live together following the values of the society that they belong to. Procreation will mean that we have to continue to have children. And for that matter, if we don't marry, then procreation will cease. Marriage will not be termed as being compulsory, that everybody will have to marry. But because it's a value in a society, it is rather cherished that people in the society who have what it takes to marry. And so therefore, if somebody is of age to marry, because it's a societal value, a society that he belongs to or lives in values marriage. For that matter, if you don't marry when you're of age to marry, the society frowns on such. And since society frowns on it, then it is only appropriate that when you have what it takes to marry, you should marry. Unless, of course, you are not of age to marry. Here, the age will also have to do with societies. Some societies will have maturities based on certain age levels. When we come to Ghana, for instance, our constitutions have it as 18 years. The person is assumed to be matured. And so when you travel across the world, the age levels that they deem or they assume one to be matured. And maturity here means that they can take decisions. So that once they are not minors and they can take decisions, then maturity will allow that they could marry. So age will vary from one society to another as far as marriage is concerned. So the issue of whether or not it is compulsory, if we want to relate it to society generally, it may not be as compulsory, but it is a thing that is cherished. And once it is cherished, then if you are, quote unquote, a responsible person in society, then when you are of age to marry, you should marry. if you don't marry, then the tag or that stigma of being irresponsible, that's why you don't want to marry, is on you. So you decide either to be with the responsible people or you want to live a life that otherwise you have a stigma attached to your life.
MashaAllah. That's rightly mentioned. Maulim Habib Saab, Mr. Bilal Saab just mentioned the fact that in our society, marriage might not be deemed that compulsory, but for you to be called someone who is responsible, you have to get married, and that is what the society deems of a person. Now we want to know, from the Islamic point of view, what do you say on this, and then why should we even marry at all in that sense as well?
The purpose of marriage and the reason why people marry, as it has been mentioned from the Islamic perspective, is clearly explained in the Quran, the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and of course as beautifully explained by the Promised Messiah and the Khulafa. In the Holy Quran, for instance, Allah the Almighty says, وَخَلَقَنَاكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا, that we have created you in pairs. Now, we are created in pairs here means that two people created to function and to complement each other, to attain peace, tranquility, and to reflect the divine attribute of Allah. Now, this is further explained in another verse of the Holy Quran, where Allah the Almighty says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. That's the way to continue to display the signs of Allah, the attribute of Allah. So Allah created you mates from your own species that you may find peace in them. Now, let me give example with pair of shoe. Now, shoes are designed to give you peace of mind and to also to make your appearance complete. Now, imagine you put on an elegant dress, but you do not put on shoe. How will you be? How will people look at you? You know, yes, of course, you dress well, but without shoe. Or maybe you put on native clothes like our own traditional clothes. Then imagine you go and put on this, what do you call it, soldier's shoe. You see, it's a shoe, but it does not what? Match
those
your
boots,
own.
Those boots,
they didn't. Now, when you put on shoe also, you have that peace of mind that at least you know you will not be disturbed by the pebbles, rubbles on earth, and also sharp objects will not disturb you. That is the peace. So it is also the same thing with marriage that Allah the Almighty created. So just like you cannot go and pick shoe anywhere, so Islam also designed that institution that is called marriage. Now, just like also with the case of the shoe, you have to take the one that will put your mind at rest and will complement your appearance. The same thing also the Holy Prophet Muhammad said, when you want to marry, then fadfar bidhati din, that you should give priority to religion. And another hadith, the Holy Prophet also say, إِذَا أَتَاكُمْ مَنْ تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَهُ فَزَوِّجُوهُ. That if a man you are pleased with his religious activities and character, two things mentioned here, religion and character, then you should marry him. So this is the reason why we got married. That is to attain that peace, perfections, and to continue to display the divine attribute of Allah the Almighty.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Our cherished audience, as I just mentioned, the viewers at home and everywhere you are watching us from, we have in here our live studio audience, and they shall be making some submissions, one or two, within some time or after a while. We will take one from Mr. Osman Bedu Sahib, and from there we will come to the audience to take a question or a comment or any other thing. Mr. Osman Sahib, now we've had the idea, the fair knowledge of the importance or why it's even necessary for someone to get married. But nowadays in our society, people do say that the youth, they take too long. They take their time, like a lot of time before they get into or they contract marriages. So we want to know, what do you think accounts for this delay, extending the period of marriage?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a multifaceted question because it may actually reflect from why the person wants to get married and what the person stands for. That is from the person. Then, what the society, where the person lives, what are the values there? Okay, because nowadays I can attribute this delay to our desire for worldly attainment. For instance, somebody wants to attain a certain level of education before he gets into marriage, thinking that it's only when he does that that he can marry successfully. Okay? Somebody who wants to attain a certain level of wealth before he gets into marriage, thinking that it's only when he's accumulated up to a certain level, then he will be comfortable to marry.
Yeah, he feels if he's having enough, that's when he will be able to take care of.
And that is causing a lot of problem in the society. You see, we have set some targets for ourselves, which is not helping us, right? Because nature has its own course. And if we all can recall the biological makeup of the man, okay, or let me say human being, at certain age, definitely your body will be calling, you know, for marriage. The desire for intimacy become clear and glaring, that it demands that once you have the means, you should marry. But the means, it does not mean that we should wait until we get everything before we start, because marriage is a journey. And we all know the saying that says that a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step. So not until the youth come to appreciate this concept that, yes, let's start on this humble note and grow, we will always delay marriage. So what is affecting us is our quest to attain certain levels in life before we get married. That is delaying. And it comes with a lot of repercussions, because if you delay, now, if care is not taken, you are using the wrong means of satisfying that call that your biological nature is making. And that is very serious. So if we want to marry, it's important we appreciate the fact that marriage itself is something that Allah the Almighty has instituted, and His Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has recommended highly. And so we take it upon ourselves that it's a duty that we need to step into, no matter how humble our background is. Okay, and sometimes the families background, I call them background because the mother of the bride, or the woman, the parent of the man, sometimes they can also be the problem. Okay, in some cases the youth are ready, but the parent will be discouraging them to go in. No, you are too young, wait. Okay, perhaps when he or she married, he or she encountered some problems. So being a mother or a father, he thinks that no, he doesn't want the child to also encounter that problem. So he'll be asking the child, no, hold on. That
means it's like a form of an experience they've gone through, which they feel their children shouldn't go through.
Exactly. Okay, but it cannot be that once you went through that experience, then it is definitely that I will also go through that experience. Okay, so these are some of the challenges that actually delay our marriages, our quest to attain worldly. You know, we don't look at the marriage as a religious obligation. Okay, because once you look at marriage from that angle, you will definitely get married when you attain the required age.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. So it means that our youth should take a very good note of the submission of Mr. Osman Baidu Sahib, to know that delaying or thinking that you have to get to a certain level in riches or in prosperity before you get married is not the case. Rather, you should get into the contract, or you should contract the marriage and progress in the marriage, not you progress before you go into the marriage. Well noted. Now, we want to take that same thing from Mr. Bilal Sahib as to our youth nowadays. Mr. Osman Sahib has mentioned a lot, but we want to still know, because there are others who feel there are so many things they feel they should be able to do before they get to, or they get into marriage.
The issue of staying longer before getting married, just as my brother put it, maybe from two angles, I will put it, because we are individuals, but belong to families. So our own individual decisions may be a factor, and the family decisions will also be a factor. The reason is that somebody I know had told himself that he wanted to finish his master's degree before he married. Mm-hmm. I also know of someone who wanted to put up a building before he married. Yeah,
for that I've heard a lot of youth saying, because after marriage they feel we have to have somewhere to sleep. So exactly. I have to at least make it and build something before I bring in someone.
Good. So these are personal decisions that such persons had made and were holding on to. And for that matter, they were not ready to go into marriage until they had acquired what they had set for themselves. But nobody knows tomorrow, as we always told. So that the Quran talks about the fact that when we plan, Allah also makes his own plan. So if your plan for such is not the same as Allah had planned, means that you keep on prolonging the marriage. Then comes a factor where you want to marry. And like my friend put it, your parents tell you, hold on a little. Hold on a little here may mean that your parents have certain expectations. Your parents may also wish that you finish school, get a job before you marry. When you have such problems, the two could actually contribute to you staying longer before marrying. If you have parents who support that you are of age to marry, some of those parents rather put pressure on you that you don't have to stay too long before you marry. So that if you are having such a home, it means that the parents themselves are ready to put little support that they have to make for you to get yourself a wife or a husband. But if you have such parents who otherwise think that you need to put yourself at a level which they think is enviable before you get into marriage, then it means it is going to add up to what you already have on your mind and continue to let you stay on and stay on until you later realize you are getting gray hair in your beard. Then you realize that you are getting late into your marriage. So the facts are two. The third, which is also a remote one, is the fact that some people want to look at the marriage expenses before marrying. What am I going to do? Don't I want it to look like this, like that, like this, like that? So even before they think of marrying, they project so huge an expenditure they want to go into or incur in the marriage. And so these are some of the reasons why men and women who are of age are doing what they are doing, and they are staying on longer and longer. When we just had a program and we are sat, I overheard the secretary reading a report saying that about 800 plus marriageable men had attended seminars, and 1 year period, the number that could contract marriages were only 57 out of the 800 plus. You may ask yourself, what is accounting for that delay? Personal, what the set for themselves, what the families look at also. And then the third one, which is the remote one, is the expenditure that they project they want to go into or will incur when they are going into the marriage. These are the reasons why people prolong their marriages.
MashaAllah. Maulim Habibullah Sahab. Yeah, today you would be our spiritual father here, giving us the Islamic aspect of everything. So in that same manner, what do you think has been the main reason, the causes? Because Mr. Osman Sahib mentioned the fact that some people, because they've gone through an experience before, they feel their children should
not go there.
They shouldn't go because they have experienced it and they know what they are talking about. So we want to know how or what are those things which are affecting our youth nowadays that we intend to stay a little longer before getting married?
Yes, like they rightly mentioned about all those worldly things, that all goal targets that we set for ourselves. The truth is, they are not forbidden. In fact, the Quran, the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they ask us to work for it, to pray for it, to acquire them. For instance, Allah the Almighty says in the Holy Quran, كل من حرم زينة الله التي أخرج لعباده والطيبات من الرزق قل هي للذين آمنوا في الحياة الدنيا خالصة يوم القيامة. That ask them, who say Allah the Almighty has forbidden these beautiful things, these material acquisitions. No, they are not forbidden. In fact, they are created for the believers in this world. But of course, Allah is merciful. Yeah. So even those who are not believers, they also share in them. But in the hereafter, it will be for the believers. Yeah. Then the verse of the Holy Quran even asks us to pray for it. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. So, oh Allah, give us the good things of this world and the good things of the hereafter. And it also asks us to work for it. هَلْ جَزَاءُ الْإِحْسَانِ إِلَّا الْإِحْسَانِ. That man who works towards good and achievement of these things, he will have it. But just like they explained, the Prophet alayhi salam, he explained it in so many places. In his book, Kishtin Nuh, he said that, okay, what is forbidden are two major things. First, don't acquire them in an unlawful way. Make sure whatever the process you are following, it should be according to the teachings of the Holy Quran. You must not contravene any teachings of the Holy Quran and the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The second thing is, they may not be the foundation, just like it is being mentioned, on which you base what is compulsory. These are something to make your life easy, but this is what is compulsory on you. So this one should not come and overtake this. There's an example of the Khalifatul Masih Awwal. A man wanted to get somebody asked for someone's daughter's hand in marriage. So the man looked at him, he said he is not wealthy enough. How will I give him my daughter? And he said, well, the Khalifatul Masih Awwal, rahimahullah, radiyallahu anhu, he said to him that if your daughter is destined for wealth, then when she enter an empty home, she will bless it, or she will come with her blessing. But if she is not destined for wealth, even if you pile the whole house with property, her entrance will make the house miserable. Just like they say. So that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, let it not be all that it is what we concentrated on. So this is what the Islamic perspective really.
I want to add one other factor, which is quite real. Sometimes it happens that you are not able to really get a partner, okay? Depending on where you are and the kind of society you are in, perhaps you are not able to get a match. That can also prolong the time that you take to marry.
All right.
Because if I'm an Ahmadi, and my expectation is to get to marry a very good Ahmadi woman. But where I find myself, where I'm working, I could hardly chance on an Ahmadi. Okay, maybe I have to reach other Jamaats or other zones before I can get somebody to make contact here and there for me. That one can also help, result in delay, because nowadays the world is quite complex, and it's advised that you don't just choose a partner. And like Mualim is saying, the Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam has laid down the procedure, and you need to really prepare, pray for it, right? And so by so doing, you may want to take your time so that you don't rush and pick somebody that will not be your like. I think that one can also affect your choice. You see, this one can be a bit controversial, but I think that is also one, maybe the audience will agree with me, because sometimes the segregation that we have do not also foster a very good ground for us to make our choices. Okay, these are prescribed religious principles. That is fine, but it doesn't make your choice easy. For instance, Lajna, they are holding their Ijma all alone. Kudam, they are doing, when you go to the mosque, women are here, men are here. After mosque, Assalamu alaikum, everybody gets. When we are in school, we are not allowed to mix too much. Okay, so if we don't get a third hand who will consciously try to put Ahmed and Rahma together, you see that naturally they may take some time to get into it. And I think that one also affects, it's quite controversial anyway, but I also see it as one of the factors that can also delay our marriage.
You see, in the Jamaat, alhamdulillah, I believe those who are Ahmadi, that challenge is solved. Except if we did not want to make use of the system put in place by the Promised Messiah alayhi salam. That's why we have a Rishtanata committee, where at least people are set there. The Promised Messiah alayhi salam designed it. You don't need to approach her or him. You don't even need to see each other in the very beginning before you talk about the marriage. That is the essence of the Rishtanata. You meet the secretary or the people that are there, you talk to them or they talk to you, and they get you the match. And inshallah, with the blessings and prayer, so many marriages are conducted in such a way. And Allah the Almighty bless it.
We would like to get into the audience, but I would like to a quick one on what you just mentioned. So in Islam, the matter of arranged marriages and love marriages, what does Islam say about these things?
The arranged marriage, Islam agreed with it. For instance, my father or my mom can look at, okay, I'm up to the age of marriage, and she will look for a lady, because just like he rightly mentioned, they are both Lajina, so they know themselves better. Then she will look for a suitable lady and talk to me about it. Okay, maybe my sister or my auntie, they are all Lajina. They can look for a suitable lady in a house that is good. That's why it says, Fadfar bizati din. Then you now talk to him that, okay, I have found a match for you. The same thing also, the lady should be informed. Of course, the Prophet ﷺ now gave the final verdict that, okay, they are allowed maybe for a day or two to see each other and agree that I want to marry. Because the Prophet ﷺ, when such arranged marriage was taking place, so the Prophet ﷺ asked the companion, have you seen her? He said, no. He said, okay, go and see her. then you talk, you agree. So by the time you agree, alhamdulillah, you go. And so you don't actually wait and say, I must be the one to find for myself. Yes, so that is arranged in Islam. Sometimes it may not even your family that will find it. This is the beauty of the Jamaat. As a missionary, I talk to so many youths. He is good, is decent. Just like we say, the Prophet ﷺ said, if you are pleased with his religious activities and his character, then you also look for a lady that is good. You talk to him, then you also talk to the parents of the lady. You ask them to do istikhara, and they see each other, and many marriages are conducted like that. So they don't actually need to be mixing in Islam and others. So all those arranged marriage is actually conducted. The only thing Islam added, which is beautiful, unlike others, is both parties that will get married have to agree. So they are not forced. No forced marriage in Islam. They are not forced. They have to agree. So that is the beautiful things about the teachings of Islam.
Mawlim Abisab, Jazakumullah for that clarification, because it is very important for us to know what Islam says when it comes to these marriages, because people do say that in Islam we don't really care about the females, we just force them and then we contract the marriage. But you've made it very clear that even in the arranged marriages, there has to be the consent of the female and the male involved in the marriage. Now we shall be getting to, we shall be going to our audience to have a suggestion or a question, a comment from them, if any, please.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Abdul Basit, and mine is a contribution.
Okay.
Considering the challenges that are leading to delays in young men or young women getting married, I think one key thing is how we have come to perceive marriage as an event and not a long-term process. And because we see it as an event, most people are interested in having a very elaborate event. And if you want to have an elaborate event, you need to have deep pockets. You need to have a lot of money to be able to do it. So we are looking at not just going into the mosque and having the main process done, but coming out to have a huge walima, and that comes with cost.
Yeah.
So people tend to delay until such a time that we can be able to have that kind of elaborate walima before we would want to proceed to enter into the marriage. And there's this saying I came across, that if we make marriages become very costly, then people will tend, or zina, and zina is cheaper, people will opt for zina rather than going into legal marriages.
Yeah.
And I think that is one thing we are seeing, because marriages now, even if the man wants to have something small, the woman will tend to want to have something big, and parents will come in also, and society largely is also expecting something elaborate. And now we even compare marriages, and you hear people saying this person had a bigger marriage, that person had a bigger marriage, and everybody wants to have a big marriage. And I think it's one of the reasons why we are having delays.
That is very, very true. Jazakumullah for that. Now we will take another from the audience, and we'll get back to it.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Okay, mine is actually a question.
Okay.
We find ourselves talking about delay in marriage. How would one be convinced to get married early? Why should one marry early?
Early.
Okay, that is a very, very important question. We will come to the audience again, but just a quick one, Mr. Bilal, we want to know, talking about the expenditure, heavy expenditure, and you mentioned that, we want to know, is that really needed? Should that be the case, that you have to have very big and that kind of a walima before you are accepted in the society?
Please, my answer will be no.
Okay.
You just have to look at your, as we are told, you say you cut your cloth. You cut your coat according to your cloth. The coat that you want to wear. You look at the cloth that you have taken to the tailor, whether it should be the hanging one or should be just a little, just to move with. Society, like he put it, society has influence.
Yes.
And sometimes we allow ourselves to be influenced by society or the people around us. Because what is required in Islam, that you contract marriage according to your strength.
Yeah.
And so once it is khutbah in the car that the mualim or the missionary will have to recite over the marriage, at your Jamaat level, you could do. We've done, while I was in Dakuma as circuit president, we've contracted marriages a number of times. But there was one that we did, which I've said at many opportunities that I've had to talk about marriage, that it was the simplest marriage that we had ever organized in the circuit. Because the gentleman made us understand that he wanted the thing to be simple. And so he wanted only his Jamaat members to be part of the marriage. And so we went there, myself and the circuit missionary, we went there one evening after Isha to do the nikah. And then the Saturday, I think it was Friday, so the Saturday, we went for the walima. And the walima, I'm very sure we were not more than 50. Even if we're up to 50, I'm not sure we were up to. But we used only 2 tents. The male under one, and then the female under 1 tent. The meal, I think it was pie and some drinks. Well, we had discussed, we sat down with him. We know him very well, and knowing his background, just as we are discussing, it is not Islam for us to put pressure on people to deter them from getting married. So we made him understand that the Holy Prophet talks about the fact that the marriage that Allah holds more is the one that you have incurred a lot of costs, especially looking at your strength. So since it was not necessarily going for maybe support from people or loan or something like that, just allow us to do it simple. And we did it simple. Today, as we speak, I think they have about 3 children. They have gotten some small building. They have put up. They have put up a small. Yes, small.
So it's almost as Mr.
Yes, small.
As Osman just mentioned, that you have to get married and progress with the marriage. Not that you wait till you have that progression before you bring in. Now to Mr. Osman, we want you to tackle the question from our Khadim there, that why should we even marry early? But before that, we will want to take another from the audience, and we will come for that answer from Mr. Osman Saab.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa
I am Mr. Mohammed Attar Alpha. My question is in line with that of my brothers.
Okay.
I would like the panelists to spell out the fundamental requirements for marriage.
The fundamental requirements for marriage. Okay, so Mr. Osman Saab, you would start with the other question. Why should we marry early? Yeah.
Yes, I think that if you marry early, it has so many advantages, both biological and spiritual. Okay, and spiritual means that by marrying early, it will save you from getting into any excesses in terms of intimacy. Because like I earlier on mentioned, you don't have to forget that nature is also at its course. Once you attain puberty, things are knocking things, you understand? And your urge to even have sex is heightened, right? And so if you have the means, then why delay? Because marriage is the only legal way of satisfying that feeling. Except that you don't want to go the right way and you want to pass by the window and not the door. But if you really want to go by the right way, then once you have attained that age that I'm talking about, where your biological setup is ready and you have the means, then you don't have to wait anymore. you do not have to wait anymore. In Ghana, like my brother had used to, legally, 18 years is considered as maturity. But looking at our economy, by 18 you have reached nowhere. Okay? So when I was the Central Regional Kai some years back, I used to tell the Khudam that once you get a job, that's it. You don't have any excuse. Because it means that you can marry, have a home, and sustain the home, inshallah, and you progress. You see? So I think that if you marry early, spiritually, it will save you. Now, let's come to biologically. You know, if marriage itself has to be planned, something that we need to plan consciously, because now, how many children do you even want to have? That decision has to be taken, okay, in order to decide when you are even going to marry. Okay, outside of the world, these have been the lapses, because in advanced countries they do all these things. Okay, so if you marry early, you are able to give your birth to your children whilst you are strong, biologically, physically. Okay, and so your children will obviously be strong children. Not that you are getting to answer, then you are now getting married to give birth to children. You can imagine how weak your children will be. Okay, and if you get to answer and you are weak, I'm not sure you are going to get a very young Lajna to marry. That's also another thing that may even delay you further. Okay, so then, if the means is there, why don't you marry early? By 25, 26, 27, if you have a job, you marry. So by the late 30s, you are done with your children, and now you are looking at how you are going to take good care after them.
Jazakumullah Hasan al-Jazaa. Talking about the taking care of your young kids, we all see as a khadim when you are able to come for Jamaat programs or activities with your child or your children being at Fal or with your child at Tifl, you will be able to train him yourself to nurture him so that he also gets to know of the Jamaat, and everything moves on hand in hand. That is when you are, I would say, young enough. Yes, you have that young boy with you or young girl with you to train him yourself. Now, we would want Muallim Sahab to tackle that of the fundamental requirements of marriage. But before that, we would see our gentleman for another submission from the audience. Wa alaikum salam.
Omar Abdul Shafiq. Sometimes, or let me say initially, we were told that before you could get married, it was an arranged marriage. And then our parents used to bring the woman to the man and they would get married. And it was okay. But now it has changed. Everything has changed. Even if you want to get married, people in your family will try to discourage you from getting married. So it's like a contribution and a question at the same time.
Okay.
If we can bring that,
the tradition back.
tradition back, so that the union will continue to be there.
Okay. That's very much is very well noted. Now we will take that answer from Muallim Sahab.
Yes, in Islam, basically, just it has been mentioned, what we see in the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Khulafa is one of the basic, the fundamental, after you agree, that is the person is of religious character and others, okay, let's leave those ones as the basis. Now, after you have agreed that you want to marry, the basic thing is the dowry. Now, the dowry should not be very, very much expensive, just like it has been mentioned. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he got married with so many, as the Sunnah indicated. Then there's one that the Khalifa mentioned even recently in his sermon, which the brother approached the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that I have a sister. The brother is Luqman, that I have a sister that you should marry her. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam set the dowry for her. So when they agree for the marriage, just like we say arranged marriage, they agree. So the Prophet ﷺ set the dowry. Then the man say, we are noble people. We came from a very high background. We are rich. This dowry is too small. The Prophet ﷺ said to him that I do not set dowry for any of my wives or my children more than this. So one of the fundamental is the dowry, and the dowry should not be what? More. Of course, there's no secret marriage in Islam. That is the second one, which is very important. So that's why there is ijab wal qubul. That is the acceptance. You agree you want to marry, and the Prophet ﷺ said it should be open. It is zina that is done in secret. Marriage is done open. In another hadith, it says that you should announce it in the mosque. In another hadith, it says you should announce it bid-dufuf. That is by letting the people know. However, you don't need to go and print like all this invitation card and all that, you waste money. We also talk about walima, how expensive it is. Now, this is the beauty of Islam and the Jama'ah. The Prophet alayhi salam, he came in order to revive the sunnah of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we must instill in ourselves the love for the sunnah of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and to follow it. Now, I just mentioned example, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam married Sophia. She came from a very noble family. The following morning, they went to do walima. And he came to the companion, and he says, who has something to eat? According to the hadith in Bukhari, some brought a tamr, that is dates. And some brought a sawik, that is, I don't know, but we clarify it like gari. You get it? And he spread it on the mat. That is what they eat as their walima. You see, it's not too expensive, but you won't be able to do this except you love the sunnah of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as the Prophet Messiah said we should hold it. But if we want to get this one better, we can also look at the book written by the present Khalifa. That is, what do you call it? The responsibility of an Ahmadi. Conditions of Bayat are responsibility of an Ahmadi. We'll see how he condemned all those innovative culture that we should try to avoid them. Then marriage will be simple. Inshallah. So those are the fundamentals.
Inshallah. These are the fundamentals that we should try. We know that our audience, they have a lot of questions to ask, but time wouldn't really permit us to move further for more questions. But just a brief one is in the form of last words of our panelists here, starting from Mr. Bilal Saab. As our Khadim rightly mentioned, like in the local adage, Sankofa Yinchi, like going back to the traditions is something we wouldn't say is forbidden at all. So he was saying why there should be this announcement or publicity of we going back to the olden days. We want to know how the system was, as experienced as you are, and then how we should try in our own way to also establish this in our homes and towns and wherever we are coming from. Just something brief so that we can wrap up.
Briefly, I will say that, just as Mualim was saying, contracted marriages or arranged marriages, if you want to do statistics, you'll find that about 90% of them survive. The reason is that people who made the choices do not want to be blamed later on when their marriage is not able to survive. So before they make recommendations, they do their background check well. They do their homework very, very well before they recommend somebody for you to marry or recommend you to somebody to marry. So going back to what he was saying, as in the arranged, the old, my marriage was an arranged marriage. My missionary that I was with in Dakuma had been in Nima for some time, knowing somebody there. I didn't know that woman, and this is where we are now. So anytime we have a discussion on such marriages, he will tell you that if it goes well, you have peace of mind as the person who arranged. But if it doesn't go well, your door is always knocked. So since nobody wants the door to be knocked with troubles all the time, before they make selections, and make choices for people to
make good choices,
yes,
for people.
They will do.
We will take the last words of Mr. Osman.
Thank you very much. I think that getting into marriage is as tedious as maintaining the marriage. And when it comes to maintaining the marriage, it's also a very huge topic that has to be delved into. But I want to just refer to what Hazrat Khalifatul Masih simply said, that we try to measure our egos in the marriage, okay? So that we all have to sort of meet each other at certain times when there is disagreement, okay? And most cases, I think that it is we, the men, who should be sacrificing more, because generally we are seen to have a bloated ego than our women counterpart. So, like the Huzur advised us, we have to be considerate, just see the women as that the Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam has described us, that they are like the rib. You know, if you try to straighten it too much, it breaks.
So women are like ribs. If you try to straighten them too much, you are going to break them. So we should sacrifice more as men for our women to maintain a better home. And we should also know that arranged marriages are marriages which our forefathers even did, and as mentioned by Mr. Bilal Saab, 95% of those marriages have sustained. So we should advocate for this, and we should make it public, or we should tell our people, our family, our friends to also get into this, and try we should try our possible best to also try to marry in the early stages of our lives. And with this, we are going to have a happy marriage and a sustained home. My producer is telling me it's time. We would have to draw the curtains down. Until we meet again next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Allah